Kizamde! Hop on the beat!
After quite a long hiatus, I've decided to finally return to JoJolion chapter reviews. This also coincides with the 10th anniversary of JoJolion's first chapter. With the very close reading I've done of JoJo, I feel that I definitely have a lot to say about Part 8, certainly more than I had to say back then. But since my other analysis-style videos usually focus on the big picture, this has prevented me from really going in-depth on JoJolion. I'm just not comfortable covering it from an objective standpoint when there's still so much subject to change. So I think this is the perfect time to return to these reviews. I have a better understanding of the material than before, and it provides the perfect place to talk about my thoughts on the part with a more subjective leaning. I'm sure you know already, I don't really make theories on my channel. I don't have any intention to make big, sweeping theories about JoJolion's conclusion in these videos. Instead, I would just like to provide an analysis of where we stand currently in the story, and what some possible outcomes may be for the chapter's events. This is certainly a very eventful chapter. We're just now coming off of the Wonder Review battle and moving towards whatever the end game of the part may be. The main thing of note here is obviously the return of Kaato Higashikata, who has been absent for some time. Her last physical appearance was in the flashback of chapter 64, however she has been mentioned quite frequently between that and her return. Like with most unresolved plot points in Part 8, people really loved to throw around the idea that Kaato had been forgotten. This was obviously a ridiculous idea, since she kept getting mentioned consistently, and was clearly being set up for a comeback. After she was introduced, she was separate from the family. Now that the family is in danger, she's been called to action. The chapter also gave us plenty to understand her absence in the story. The family at large wasn't really involved in the conflict until recently, so I see no reason to think that Kaato should have been present for the events she has nothing to do with. I just don't see how people could get this idea that she was forgotten in their head, even to the point of claiming that there was no possible way she could be written back into the story with the direction it's going. I'm just glad Araki is the one writing it and not these people, since they seem to have a really inactive imagination. We're talking about a manga in which Mitsuba, a totally irrelevant background character that nobody thought would be relevant, reappeared after 50 chapters and became one of the most important characters in the story. The same manga where Ojiro, the first minor villain of the part, turned out to be relevant again and even played a major role in the story. If we don't count the minor appearance he made in the Kira flashback, he came back over 80 chapters later. So the idea that anything is really ruled out from being reintroduced to the story is honestly ridiculous. We finally got a full reveal of Kato's stand, Space Trucking, named after a Deep Purple song whose comment section is now probably descended into utter chaos. We first saw a glimpse of her ability during her introduction over 50 chapters ago, which was to place objects in between playing cards. Some people, including me, expected the name of the stand to take a different approach than normal. All of the Higashikata stands so far have the word king in the name. Since Kaato is the matriarch of the family, some believed her stand would incorporate the word queen instead. But as we know now, it seems that she also just falls in with the same naming convention as the rest. In the previous chapter, Toru was gravely injured by Josuke's attack, so he ended up eating one of the new Lokakaka to do an exchange. This brings up an interesting idea which hasn't been explored yet. Back in the fight with Urban Gorilla, it was said that silicon-based organisms like rock humans are more compatible with the power of equivalent exchange. The exact meaning of this is unknown. Does this just mean that the effect is simply more powerful, or can use of the fruit by rock humans do something else? The only other shown example of a rock organism eating the fruit is Iwasuke. According to Tsurugi, he was healed from his injuries, but he is a rock animal, so maybe he was just in hibernation and Tsurugi misunderstood. We later saw him eat a piece of the fruit in the Kira flashback with seemingly no effect. In this case, Toru ate the new Lokakaka, which rather than doing an internal exchange, does one between two different people. So I've been very interested to see what effect this might end up having. Toru has a short monologue about a rock sitting on top of a cliff. He uses this as a metaphor to compare himself to Jobin, likely to provoke Kaato into attacking him. He repeatedly mentions memories, which he has talked about many times previously. Toru seems to respect the longevity of something like a rock, which accumulates memories over a long period of time, despite how the environment around it changes. He's been shown to view his relationship with Yasuho in the same way. Every time he has met her throughout her life, he accumulates more memories. The memories are the part of this relationship that Toru cherishes, and since he already has memories, he's not afraid to push Yasuho aside. Back in chapter 99, we learned that rock humans have a fascination with rocks and the earth, so his little story about this rock might be an example of that. I've also started to associate this with the dialogue from Dr. Ferdinand back in part 7, who made frequent references to respecting the earth. The way that he applied this to the extinction of the dinosaurs seems quite relevant to the ultimate goal of the rock humans, which seems to be to usurp humanity as the dominant species. Some have tried to say this rock monologue may be foreshadowing another rock human or something like that. I find this unlikely. I believe this is something more akin to Valentine's napkin analogy, something that the character says for us to get an idea of how he thinks. When taking Toru's fascination with memories into account, it's interesting to remember that the hair clip rock animal also dealt with memories. Toru's appearance when he first met Yasuho is also similar to the hooded figure she encountered when she was 13. This possibly hints at Toru being the one who gave her the hair clip in the first place. Kaato is able to incapacitate Toru with her stand, and since it is not considered an attack, she is able to avoid the calamity. We're also shown that she completely lacks any intention to fight Toru, which keeps her safe from his stand. We get a flashback of Kaato and Jobin, which gives us a really good look at the way Kaato has shaped Jobin's philosophy. Many people have tried to position Jobin or Kaato as the main villains of the part. While Jobin has definitely taken an antagonistic role in the story, I don't think that they're really poised to be villainous characters. They're closer to morally gray, anti-hero characters. I think it's possible for there to be some kind of moral clash between them and the main protagonists, but I doubt they'd end up being violently opposed at this point. At the end of the chapter, Kaato drops Tsurugi onto Toru, causing an exchange between them. Her intention seems to be to pass Tsurugi's rock disease onto Toru. It seems like this exchange will actually benefit Tsurugi, since Toru's reaction to this happening definitely looks negative. This event is without a doubt going to be important with the elephant in the room, the chapter 83 flash forward. In that, we saw Tsurugi seemingly healed, along with Joshu, Hato, and Daya in the undisturbed living room acting as if nothing has happened. Meanwhile, Norisuke is in a body bag upstairs. It seems like we finally found out the way that Tsurugi will be healed for this scene. However, there are still a lot of questions left. Jobin, Mitsuba, Kaato, and Yasuho are nowhere to be found in this scene, despite being present at the house a couple hours earlier. The house is no longer destroyed by the airplane panel, and Joshu has both of his arms. If there's anything that immediately comes to mind to me that would cause this, it would be Paper Moon King. Paper Moon King is known for illusions, and Tsurugi seems to have gotten better at it throughout the part. However, nothing this extreme has ever been done by the stand so far. The narration of the chapter hints at a possible evolution of Tsurugi's ability, which may also be the result of this exchange. Tsurugi seems to be the only one aware of anything going on, and is clearly not in enough distress to tell anyone. So I find it most likely that Tsurugi created this scenario in some way. I'm wondering what Tsurugi's goal here could possibly be. Based on the harvest timer, this scene takes place an hour or two from the time we're at now. The fact that the harvest timer is still counting down would imply the fruit is still playing a role. 2 fruits were just eaten recently with seemingly none left. However, some earlier panels have portrayed extra fruits. It's possible that Kaato really did hide one of the fruits at some point after her conversation with Jobin. We still have yet to know what the effect of the fully ripened new Lokakaka will be. Urban gorillas seem to hint at the ripe fruit somehow facilitating the rock organisms rising above humanity. Really, it's impossible to predict how we'll reach this point, but we are starting to see things fall into place. We also have no idea how Josuke will factor into this. In this chapter, he seems to be leaving the hospital and making his way back to the Higashikata property. As for Toru, I don't really believe he'll be beaten by this, since I don't think we've really seen enough of his perspective. Toru's goals, as well as those of the rock humans in general, haven't been fully laid out. Unless there is yet another rock human adversary above Toru, I think he'll be making it out of this encounter alive. His relationship with Yasuho has a lot of baggage that could use some elaboration, and he has some conflict with Josuke that may be more fitting for a direct confrontation. We've spent the previous arc seeing how his ability was able to be overcome, so if he does get in fighting shape again, I doubt it'll just be him with his same ability. If we run with the idea that the exchange is what causes Tsurugi's stand to evolve, then it may be possible for Wonder of You to undergo a similar transformation as well. That's pretty much everything I have to say about Chapter 107. This is definitely one of the best chapters we've gotten this year, and it gives us a good idea of how we'll be progressing after this long arc. I'm also thankful for having a new stand appear after almost 2 years of fighting Wonder of You. I'm aiming to make these reviews a monthly occurrence, so I hope you join me then. If you want to receive updates on new videos or leave suggestions, join the Haman Beat Discord using the link in the description. You can also support the channel on Patreon and receive rewards like Discord perks and some uncut videos. And finally, for future videos, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons. Thank you to the Owl God, Alex Ramirez, Raziana, Anasui Hat, Doorbell, Cloudy, Monkman, Ashton Joseph Miller, Crayon, Jesper Jansen, Austin Nino, Rigo Vids, Zucato, Deforland, Joyless Child, and Shane Giger.